audio on here, what do you really expect, right? You get a V series phone, you expect top notch headphone performance, right? You expect stuff like that. You always expect that from an LG phone when it comes to headphones. That hasn't really changed, but something that's always kind of been on LG phones is speaker performance. Like the G8 got there. Like I think the G8 speakers are quite good. They're not the best things out there, especially for like there are quite a few content creators that I watch on YouTube that mix their audio kind of low, so it kind of messes with it. Kind of makes the G8 speaker sound bad. But in terms of like, let's say you watch gaming videos, you watch stuff like that, and you just watch a lot of content creators that mix their audio really well, you'll get a good amount of punch out of your speakers. Some sounds will sound as if they're coming from outside the phone. So it's kind of crazy how that stuff works. The balancing on here is actually pretty good as well. The Note 10, for example, it has this issue where it will, like, one speaker will clearly be louder than the other, and it does it quite a bit, especially when you go into Dolby Atmos. It'll like the front speaker will be louder or the bottom speaker will be louder. And it's like, it's very inconsistent, and it kind of makes me not like to use that phone. So it's just when it comes to like watching video. So that's just something that the V60 doesn't do. I haven't had a single video or any sort of like, say, 12-hour watching session of anything completely mess with like the sound in terms of the speakers. They sound good. They sound crisp. They sound nice. And in 3D audio mode, it just amplifies that. And it doesn't give you don't get like the weird gimmicky stuff that the Note has, where you could put it in a concert hall mode and make it sound even more weird. It's like, you don't get anything like that, but you get like rudimentary cinema, music, and voice. I keep it on auto and it works just fine. There really isn't that many differences between each mode, but in terms of like what it does, in terms of like boosting the audio, it just widens the sound stage basically, and it just sounds better, in my opinion, for a lot of video and stuff like that. So none of that stuff really matters, in my opinion, if the battery life is not that great, right? So I kind of alluded to this when I was talking about gaming, right? And I guess I'll talk about it again here. The battery life on this phone is really good. Like, really good is kind of an understatement when talking about the battery life on this phone. Typically when manufacturers talk about we're keeping a 1080p display because we want to conserve battery, the Note did that. While also having the Note 10 did that while also having a 3,500 milliamp hour battery. And I think it was 3,500. And the G8 also has a 3,500 milliamp hour battery with a quad HD display. The G8 stomps. It just stomps the Note 10 in terms of battery life, despite it having a higher, resolution display. So I'm getting all these notifications now. So let me talk about my average day here. When I'm at my apartment and I'm doing this, typically what I do is I watch a whole bunch of I watch a whole bunch of YouTube. And there'll be times where I'm like, you know what, I want to grind some game or something like that, right? But typically what I'm doing is I'm laying down and I'm watching YouTube. And for this, if you do that a lot, you could get, depending on your, obviously on stuff like, signal and reception and how good that stuff is. God, why does everyone got to upload now? But depending on your, reception and how good the connection of your Wi-Fi is, you could get very good battery life. And I've gotten almost 13 hours of screen on time. Now let me find one where I took it off the charger and just started using the phone instantly. Sorry, I take a lot of screenshots just for this data. Here it is. So 10 hours and 13 minutes, 10 hours and 12 screen on time. Now, what I was most likely doing there, it says I use 6% for KOF All-Star, so like 21% of my battery life, and the rest was most likely just like watching YouTube. And that's typically what I do. And you get 10 hours and 12 minutes. Now, what's the lowest I've ever gotten on this battery? Maybe like 4 hours and 40 something minutes, like 4 hours, 45 minutes of screen on time or something like that. And to me, that depends on, obviously heat in terms of like your area can affect that. Reception can affect that. And like if you're constantly connecting from 4G to 5G or Wi-Fi, it can affect that. And it's just like, basically, I've never dipped below like 4 hours and 45 minutes. So I've never dipped below near 5 hours of screen on time. Never got to 3. I would probably have to start using the phone at like 20% to get 3 hours of screen on time. And it's just honestly really nice how well LG has done with this battery. The one thing that I would say is probably the contention is recharge time. Say if you plug it in at like 2%, it'll take 1 hour and like 45 minutes to charge. And compared to like, say, a OnePlus 6T, where that also has a smaller battery at like 3700, 3750 or something like that. It's a really weird number. Where it'll take like an hour to charge. This taking just an hour, like an extra 45 minutes to charge. And keep in mind, it gets to 80 and you have like half an hour left on charging. And I think you could be fine. You could definitely be fine off just 80% of battery life for a day. No problem. You could probably still get like 5 or 6 hours of screen on time. No problem out of that. And it's just like, honestly, obviously depending on what you do, but so yeah, battery life on this phone is fantastic. I don't really have any contentions with it. And I guess I'm going to just stop there when it comes to battery life and just go to the call quality. The call quality on this phone is really good. Like, I don't really have any issues with it. Google Fi, and I guess I'll talk about like data connection and stuff like that as well in this. Google Fi does have I think it does have an HD caller mode. I don't know, but overall, it's like, it's clear. It doesn't cut out. It doesn't sound horrendous. It doesn't sound like you're talking on a phone from like 2005 or something like that, like a house phone or something. It sounds very nice. The speaker, the inline speaker is really nice. And apologies for the lack of natural lighting, but that's just how it is right now. It's just really, the call quality is nice. A lot of people still call on phones, and there are definitely people that still just put the phone to their face, right? So that's just something that's really nice. I've never dropped a call, but to be fair, I've never been on a call long enough to even have that sort of issue. So it's just something that I feel is, something I do want to bring up, but it's not something that I would say go by. So I've already kind of touched on this already, but who is this phone for? To me, this phone is obviously for people that just want to try something different, right? People that want a powerful phone, but that don't want to go for another Samsung phone, for another iPhone, for another Pixel, for another OnePlus. They don't want to go for any of those. They want to try something different. And I do want to talk about updates. And I don't necessarily think that if you have an AT&T variant and you're on AT&T, you should be fine, right? But like I said, I use Google Fi, and also, God, I forgot to talk about reception. Reception has been fine. I basically get 5G everywhere I go. Like, I really have no problem with it. Like, I think it gets to like 300 to 400 megabits per second down, and like 100 and something megabits per second up, and it's really fast. So it's actually really nice. And I've never really had it. Like, occasionally it'll go down to 4G LTE, but it's not like to the point where I'm like, ugh. So it's, I've never had it like not connect. So it's totally fine. But yeah, going back to who's this phone's for. It's for a V series person that's always liked the V series, has always used it. If you have a V50, and you don't necessarily want to lose, say, the quad HD display and stuff like that, I would say that I totally understand. I still think if you have a V50, you'll be fine for another year. Especially since this may be the last V series phone, and they might be pivoting to doing something else with a more obviously this is their pro phone. They're going to do something to pivot and make it like a V series successor. So who knows what they may do. I don't know why they didn't just do it with this phone, but whatever. Probably wasn't in their plans. But yeah, it's just for the people that, like the V series, that want something different. And every single V series phone I've had, there hasn't been anything that I've disliked, really. There's been minor gripes, and the minor gripes with this one is like just stuff that's like just the basic stuff. Like, I do wish that, because the V10 had this feature where you could connect a Bluetooth headset, and then you can connect like, corded headphones, and it'll like split the audio. I wish that would come back. I do wish it had a quad HD display. It would have been nice, but it's not a flaw to me. I do wish it had 90 or 120 hertz, but that's not a flaw to me. Like, there really isn't anything about this phone where I'm like, it needs this. Like, the camera in auto or manual is great. The video modes are still top tier. Everything about this phone is like the phone I want and the phone I wanted. So it's just there's nothing about it where I'm like, this sucks. But yeah, that's all I really want to say for this video. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think about this. Do you have a V60? Are you planning on getting it? Let me know. This is Sparta. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for the support. Hope you guys have a wonderful Friday, whatever time of day it is in the area. Thanks for 800 subscribers. And again, have a good one. What's up, y'all? Sparta here. So for this video, I finally want to get to reviewing the LG V60 on its own. My previous video was just on it in the dual screen case, basically, and how it functions and stuff like that. How it, just overall as an experience, how it is. And I've done a video on that before, but I guess I just wanted to make a more rambly review comparatively to that. But I guess if you want to watch that, you can. But for those who are just going to get the phone itself without the dual screen case, this is going to be for you guys. So let me get into just my overall feelings about the phone for the people that just want it out the gate, right? This is probably my favorite phone that I've had in a while. Like, my V40 I liked a lot. My Note 8 I liked a lot. My Note 5 I liked a lot. My every V series phone I pretty much loved, but for some reason the V60 does way more than just the basic, oh, it's just a phone and it works well as a phone. But this is basically for the people that have rocked for the V series for a while, have rocked LG phones for a while, and love what they do. This is still a phone that I would still say is great. It still has every landmark, right? Has mil standard A10G, drop, shock, weather resistance. It's a thick body for one. And a one very nice point is that it has a bigger battery now. So for those, and that's probably one of the few things that a V series is not the best at, was not the best at, was like battery life. The V50 has really good battery life from what I've heard. It has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. This is a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. And I've talked about it in like previous videos, but I guess I'll just talk about it when I get to that section about battery life, which is, just something I'll just get into later. But overall, the battery life is really good. The cameras are really good. It's everything you'd expect out of a V series phone for those of you who have been using the V series for a while. Or for those of you who that don't like the direction Samsung is going with the Note line or something like that, which I can definitely feel for. And you don't really like any of the other phones that are out right now. You don't care for like a Pixel. You don't care for a OnePlus. You don't care for an iPhone. You don't care for any other phone. This phone may be right for you, depending on what you may like in the phone. So let me get into that right now. First, I guess what I got into a little bit is the build. The build on this phone is really nice. The blue on this is really, really nice. It reminds me of a Note 5. It's like that blue, but it's not the same kind of blue, because with the Note 5 in certain lighting situations, it would be like black and stuff like that. But in this kind of like, it's kind of like this royal blue with gold accents. And a lot of people said that they don't like the gold accents. This isn't like the harshest gold I've ever seen, so I actually do dig it. The color is classy blue, and it definitely is classy. It's a nice thick phone too. Like I said, mil standard A10G still. And I've dropped it once. I've dropped it at least a couple times, but don't worry about that. That blinking you saw right there, that's the proximity sensor. But around that area, I dropped it. It's like right there, and you can barely see it. It's barely noticeable. And it's just something that's like, you can see like a couple nicks along the frame, like right here. Where else? I'm trying to remember. Oh, literally right there. And that's pretty much it. And it literally fell on its face. Oh yeah, and a little bit like right here as well. And that's pretty much all that happened to the phone when I dropped it. The screen is totally fine. Nothing got messed up there. In terms of like charging, nothing in terms of issues has happened with that, because typically sometimes when you drop your phone, it'll mess up charging because the battery may be a little bit dislodged or something like that. But from my testing and using this for at least like 2 months, almost 3, I haven't had any sort of issue. So yeah, it's really good in terms of durability. Nothing is wrong with that. Obviously, it's still glass, so you got to worry about that, right? So that's just something that's you're going to have to worry about with pretty much every higher end phone these days. The display. Now, a lot of people had to like reservations about the display because it's 1080p. They went from Quad HD with the V50 and G8 back down to 1080p. And they're like, why are you charging this much money and you're not having a 90 hertz display and you're not doing Quad HD? And it's like, when they're comparing it to a phone like, say, the Galaxy S20, even the base S20, even the S20 Ultra and stuff like that, where you have that Quad HD and you have 120 hertz, you can't go to Quad HD and 120 hertz on any of those phones. It's 1080p, 120 hertz. And which is kind of weird because OnePlus does it on the OnePlus 8 and 8, on the OnePlus 8 Pro. So I don't understand why Samsung can't do it when Samsung manufactures their panels, I believe, but whatever. But regardless of talking about that, the display on here is really nice. It's still an OLED display. It's nice and crisp. No sort of like aggressive color shifting or anything like that. That's to the point where I'd say the phone is unusable. It's not like, it's a nice flat display too. As you guys can see, there's no like subtle curves on the edges or anything like that that make it look all fancy as if it has less bezel than it does, but it's like, it's still a nice display. You still do have the notch up top, but obviously when I have a black wallpaper, so I can't really show you guys that well. Well, not black wallpaper, but a wallpaper with a black background. So let me go to, as you guys can see, there is, the camera cutout notch right there, which is like the smallest, which is small enough to where I don't care. I don't care about notches really that much anymore. I got over it, so it's whatever. Yeah, the display is really nice, and the dual display, when you have that, is still a 1080p OLED. So you get two 1080p OLEDs that run at 60 hertz, and it's just nice all around. The camera. I did a separate camera reel video. If you want to see the quality of the cameras with that, you could watch that. And I am more than happy with the quality of these cameras. The main sensor is a 64 megapixel f1.8 aperture lens. It does a crop zoom up to 10x, so you can zoom in like pretty much every other phone with no problem. And it has just as much grain as, say, the Note 10, where it still has like a lot of like grain. The only problem with like the Note 10 is that it over sharpens, so it looks like it's giving you a sharper image, but it really isn't. And sometimes Note 10 with that telephoto lens will decide, oh, I'm just going to switch to the main lens and crop in. So it's doing that with a 64 megapixel lens. It looks really nice. I don't really have any issues. The color reproduction is nice. It doesn't look like they're oversaturating photos really, and like aggressively like a Samsung phone. I don't really use HDR, but when I did use HDR, it looked really nice. It looked nice and vivid. So if you like that, it's definitely something that I would say is a nice addition. LG's auto mode is improved from, say, like a couple years ago where it was kind of Now it's quality. It looks nice. Focusing is fast, and it's pretty, consistent. It's not the most consistent thing I've had, but if you want more consistency, you can go into the manual mode, and it's just something that's really nice. The wide angle is pretty much the same as it's always been. It's a 120-degree wide angle lens, so it's going back to like the V20, but I think it's a 12 megapixel sensor on here, and it's nice. You don't get the benefit of like the G8 where you can record in 4K 60 on the wide angle, but to me, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I don't use the wide angle really, so it's just something that for video, so it's just something I don't care about all that much. Got the Z camera here for your portrait modes and stuff like that. The portrait modes on here are really nice. The cutouts and stuff have really improved over like the G8 and like the V40, and it just looks really nice. You got your dual LED flash here, really bright, really something that isn't like bad in any way. Let's talk about gaming here now. Now, I do want to do a separate gaming video. I haven't done that yet, but I guess to go into a brief synopsis here and just to tell you guys, the gaming experience on this phone is really good. It's something that I feel you don't need a gaming phone if you have this phone, because it has, from what I can tell, it has thermal cooling. It stays really cool. Like, I can't find any sort of documentation as to if it has thermal cooling or not. But if I were to guess, the V50 has thermal cooling, so this should. And if it doesn't, it's impressive how cool this phone stays. It's like, and I game on it, say, let's say King of Fighters All-Star. Let me pull up the numbers here, right? Because I've taken a lot of screenshots. Where is it at? Screenshots. I think. I'm sorry, I took a lot of screenshots because I'm just, comparing. So, yeah, let's look at this here. So, King of Fighters All Stars, 6 hours and 40 minutes of just like auto continuous playing, um, putting it on auto repeat 99 rounds and stuff like that to just like grind XP capsules and all that crap, like grind resources. And I got the phone down to 2% and it got 6 hours and 40 minutes of just playing. That's really nice. And it's not something that I feel is like, it's not a hindrance on the phone at all. It's not something that I feel, the battery life definitely is very nice. And if you do a lot of gaming, you'll definitely get the benefits of what this phone can do. Um, so yeah, gaming on here is really nice. If you play something like Call of Duty or Call of Duty Mobile and stuff like that, the speakers on here are also really good, especially if you have it in like the 3D audio mode. It'll sound really nice. It's definitely a benefit for the speakers. I would not use it on like I would not use it with headphones, but since I'm talking about audio, I guess I may as well go there already. The